week we're going to talk about organizational culture and climate. Whoops, there we go. Alright, so organizational culture is a fairly new concept. The term was coined in two separate books, one by Deal and Kennedy called Corporate Cultures, and another by Peters and Waterman called In Search of Excellence. Both of these books were published in 1982, so apparently they came up with the same sort of idea around the same time. When we generally think about organizational culture, there's a variety of different definitions, and your book has an excellent definition, but I wanted to throw some different ones out there for you to think about in addition to the one in your text. So Holland identified organizational culture as the constellation of values, beliefs, assumptions, and expectations that underlie and organize the organization's behavior as a group. I think for me that's a key term. These underlying values may pertain to ethical, behavioral, commitment to employees, efficiency, or client service, and they provide the glue to hold an organization members together. An organization's culture is unwritten, but can be observed in its stories, slogans, ceremonies, dress, and office layout. And your book would tag that last little bit of drafts, definition, into organizational climate, because when they talk about climate, they talk about the visual aspects, observable aspects of an organization's culture. I took this straight from your Shriver book. I just wanted to highlight it. It's on page 408, and I thought that Austin and Claeson's ideas about the three levels of culture were a good way of looking at it. So you can look at that in your text, but I just wanted to highlight when they're talking about artifacts, they're talking about the symbolic presentations of values and beliefs and basic assumptions. I'm just reading that out of your text. And then the values and beliefs are what members believe ought to be in the work of the organization. And then the basic assumptions then are the fundamental notions of how the organization and its members relate to the environment, time, space, reality, and each other. All right. So the culture is the way that it is perceived, and if you think about culture in larger aspects applied to humans in a variety of different capacities, it's sort of hard to put your finger on. It's sort of a esoteric term, but there are some clearly defining factors that you can talk about different cultures of different groups of individuals. The organizational climate looks at some of those more transparent pieces. So your book not transparent, it's more visible pieces. So your book talks about it as the visible or observable ways that culture is manifested within an organization. So when we talk about the climate, it basically is, if we look at all the research and scholars, it generally refers to the degree to which an organization focuses on and emphasizes the innovation, the flexibility, the appreciation and recognition, the concern for employee well-being, learning and development, citizenship and ethics, quality performance, involvement and empowerment, and leadership. So it has been shown time and time again in the literature that it is an important predictor of organizational success. Numerous studies have found positive relationships between positive organizational climate and various measures of organizational success, such as sales, staff retention, productivity, customer satisfaction, and profitability. So, there are some ways that you can measure the climate. So, if you're going to think about looking at the climate of an organization, you can look at its leadership. How much confidence is shown in subordinates? So, what do they think of the leadership? How free do they feel to talk to their superiors about their job? Is it safe? To what extent are subordinates' ideas sought and used? So, is it a top-down? Is it a shared power piece? Is information clearly transferred back and forth, which is another level, is the communication. But what does that look like? The motivation is predominant use made of fear, threats, punishment, rewards, and involvement. So the motivator for you getting your work done is you're afraid that you may be fired, you may not have opportunities, or is it intrinsic, that it makes you feel good and you enjoy it, or that it is maybe extrinsic, that the leadership tells you you're doing a good job, that they reward you with little coffee cards or whatever it is. Where is responsibility felt for achieving the organization's goals? Is that the leadership's job? Is it all of us working together? Is it somebody else's job and not my job? Where does that come from? And how much cooperative teamwork exists? Can you work together as a team? Do you feel like you can share your role and work together? Or do you feel like you need to hole up in your office, or you don't want to share information for fear that it might be perceived that you are inadequate? Communication. What is the direction of the communication flow? Does it always come from top down, bottom up, that all the information goes upstairs, but leadership doesn't share any information? How is downward communication accepted? So if the leadership does have communication that goes down, do people sit up and listen? Do they dismiss it? Do they feel resentful? How accurate is upward communication? So the information that goes up to the leadership, is it a true representation of what is really going on? How well do superiors know the problems faced by subordinates? So is there an understanding of what the subordinates actually do in their day-to-day work, the challenges that are faced by those individuals? Decision-making. At what level are decisions made? Again, is it all top-down? Is it at multiple levels? Do employees have the ability to make levels of decisions, or does everything have to go through a system? How are subordinates involved in the decisions related to their work? And how does the decision-making process contribute to motivation? Do you feel like you can confidently make a decision and that it will be supported? Or do you fear that your decisions will be second-guessed? Goals. How are organizational goals established? Do people in a back room make the goals and tell you how it's going to work? Are you brought together and brainstorm, but then only given lip service that you are told you have input, but then you truly don't have input? Or are you truly involved in the process? How much covert resistance to goals is present? So, if there are goals, do people truly work towards those goals? Do they not agree with them, so they try to do underhanded activities in order to prevent them from being successful? What's going on there? And then controls. How concentrated are review and control functions? Is there an informal organization resisting the formal one? So is there a group within the system or organization that is saying, we're just not going to do it that way. We don't really care what you say. We're not going to do it. And what are the cost, productivity, and other control data used for? So if they gather information, is it truly used? Is it plugged back into the system? Or is it just disregarded or stuffed in a filing cabinet because they're required to gather the information? It's important that people have clarity, that there is a common understanding, that there are clear expectations and procedures. There is a very important aspect of making sure that the organizational climate directly supports the organization's goals, objectives, priorities, and also the leadership philosophy. So that is a very brief overview of organizational climate and culture.